why do you want to continue to be district attorney, and maybe back up and say, how long have you been DA? I know you were appointed and then elected.
Well, I actually came to the county in 2002, and I came here to be a prosecutor in the Shasta County DA's office. And I've worked here for the last 20 years consistently in the office, and it's become my passion. It's not a job for me, it's my calling, it's my passion. That's the biggest reason why I want to continue into this position. I have tried every type of criminal case, and I know from the experiences that I had as a prosecutor how important it is to have a district attorney in the office who has done that job, who has put in the nights and put in the weekends to properly be able to support the team and make sure that the office continues to have a very tough on crime, victim-focused approach. And I want to be that person. I've enjoyed doing it for the last 5 years. I've worked very hard to put together a very strong team. The office is running very well, and I want to continue into the future of doing it because this community means so much to me that I want to continue my career of public service to continue serving our public.
How does your experience help you in performing the job?
It helps me every day. So I am always talking to the prosecutors in the office when they have a trial or they have a preliminary hearing, and I can draw on my experience from doing trials and doing preliminary hearings and all the other aspects of the office to give them advice on how to get evidence in or how to word their questions, how to do opening statements. I'm always being asked legal questions where I have to draw on my 20 years of studying criminal law, practicing criminal law, and that is invaluable experience when it comes to being the head of this office. It's not something where you can come in with absolutely no experience and be able to function. 98% of my day is spent on exactly that, talking to and answering questions or being involved in things that require me to know criminal law. Without that foundation, you sit in the office and you're kind of useless. You have no ability to do the job unless you have the experience. And it's more than that, because having that experience, having done the trials, having worked the nights and the weekends and the long hours it takes, gives me a level of respect for the troops. You're not going to have the attorneys in the office respect you, respect the decisions you make, and want to follow you if you haven't done the job. This is simply a position where you have to have put in your time as a public servant and be a respected leader in order to run the office and have the team follow you.
Statistics. What is your conviction rate, and why do some people say that the felony conviction rate is below 50%? But you're saying your conviction rate is above 90%.
So here's the thing with conviction rates. This is not something my office has ever calculated or ever been involved in until recently, because the other side is attempting to make such a big deal out of it. I believe very, very strongly that we have to treat each case as an individual case and seek justice one case at a time. Sometimes justice is that case ends up being dismissed. That would go against a conviction rate because evidence has come to light that case should be dismissed. Sometimes justice is that person gets convicted of everything and goes to prison. Victims are not statistics to me, and they never will be. We're going to fight for justice for each individual person. I never want a prosecutor in my office to worry about fighting for a victim that they believe in, even though it's a tough case, but they have to decide, do I actually go forward and advocate for this victim? I could lose at trial, but that might hurt my conviction rate, so I'm not going to advocate for this victim. That is wrong. That is unethical. That is something I will never get behind, and I know that is a very strong opinion up and down the state at DA offices. Because honestly, I could have 100% conviction rate if I wanted. I'd say let's only go to trial, let's only file cases where it's videotaped evidence that there is no question that we're gonna win the case. But that's not justice. We have to fight for everybody. And that's why this continuing conversation around conviction rates, to me, is almost a red herring, because they're wanting to make you think that there's something negative there, and there simply is not. The numbers I hear them talking about are jury trials. So every year we handle over 10,000 cases. We handle a lot of cases come through my office. Less than 1% of those cases goes to jury trial. And the reason those cases go to jury trial is because the two sides could not agree and come to a plea bargain, because there's some type of a triable jury issue there. And that's where we exercise our constitutional right from both sides to take it to a jury and let the jury decide. And I respect that verdict, whether it's a guilty or it's a not guilty. That is the beauty of the system. But you cannot judge an office based on less than 1% of the cases. We handle so many cases. Just last year, we had over 8 homicide cases that resolved either by trial or by plea, where we're sending people to prison for life. We had so many child molest cases that we were able to settle by plea, sending them to prison for life. Same with many other types of crimes. So to say that plea bargains should not be included, I completely disagree with that. So I'm always going to be of the position that we need to seek justice one case at a time, and I do not want a prosecutor in the office worried about hurting their conviction rate when they're making a decision to fight for justice.
Conviction rate is not an important measurable.
It's certainly not. It's not.
Well, you brought up sending people away to life in prison. What's your thought on the death penalty?
I think the death penalty is something that I am in support of its use. However, it is something that needs to be used in a very, very narrow situation. It is having someone's life in your hands, making that decision is one of the strongest or biggest responsibilities that anyone could ever have, and I would never take that lightly. It's someone's mom or dad or brother. We review our homicide cases for whether they are death penalty eligible or if it's a proper case for that. We have decided against that in every case that I've analyzed in the last 5 years of being in the office. But we make sure we look at the person's entire criminal history. We go back and we look at their experiences throughout their childhood. We talk to the surviving family members. We allow the defense attorneys to give their input if it looks like it's a case that is eligible for that. Because it's a responsibility that we can never take lightly, and it really needs to be reserved for the absolute worst of the worst, true evil people in our society.
What kind of programs have you started in your 5 years as district attorney?
So throughout my career as a prosecutor, I was very fortunate early in my career to do crimes against children. So that would be physical abuse and sexual abuse. I say I'm fortunate because I was able to put some of worst of humanity in prison for a very long time for hurting children. And I feel that's where I got my passion for being a prosecutor. So when I became district attorney, I knew that I needed to make sure that we do as much as we can to protect children in our community. Because if we can protect children and do what we can for children, that is how we can fix generational criminality. You know, you don't want a child to fall into the footsteps of a parent who may be someone who's in and out of prison. So because of that, I have started the Family Violence Unit in my office so that we have 4 dedicated prosecutors and a supervisor that handle all of those child cases, elder abuse, stalking, those kind of family-centered cases that need to have that special attention of people who are trained to handle those cases. I am a founding board member for the Children's Legacy Center. Prior to us having that here in the community, a child who was a victim of a crime or witnessed a crime would often be drug around the community to talk to medical, to talk to mental health, to talk to the DA's office, the police department, and they're effectively were being re-traumatized every time. Well, because of my work and the other board members, we were able to bring the Children's Legacy Center here that's a one-stop location for those children to be interviewed by someone who is a forensic interviewer who's trained to do this. And we've got medical watching, we've got the DA's office watching, we've got law enforcement watching, Children and Family Services. Everyone watches one interview. So I'm very proud of my work on that as well. I've also worked with our superintendent of schools, Judy Flores, to bring the FOCUS program to our community. And that takes first responders, be it fire or medical or police officers who respond to some type of a traumatic event and there's a school-age child there. They're able to notify Shasta County Office of Education, who notifies the school that very night, so that, not that they know the details of what happened, but so that the teacher of that child knows if that kid shows up without their homework, or they're being aggressive, or they're crying, or whatever, that child had something traumatic happen the night before, and to treat that child with care, give them an extra time, make sure that school is a safe place for them, because we need them to have a safe place so that they don't continue to get traumatized at home and then traumatized at school. That type of life can really end up having a kid go down the wrong path. I assigned a full-time prosecutor to work with the neighborhood police unit for the Reading Police Department so that we can work more closely with the proactive work that they are doing there. I started the Chronic Offender Accountability Program after AB 109 sent a lot of state prisoners into our county jail and made it become full, and Prop 47 turning crimes from felonies to misdemeanors. I knew that we needed to do something, so I worked with the sheriff and the chiefs of police to put this program together to make sure that repeat offenders, the ones that are the most egregious, they're getting 20, 30, 40 calls for service, are really focused on. I have a dedicated prosecutor who works on that. We have designated beds in the jail for them. So whether it is a misdemeanor or low-level felony or a higher felony, we can make sure that that person is put in custody and kept in custody. Because a lot of those people would never even show up for court because there isn't the room in the jail. So there's, you know, a lot of different programs that I've been involved in and I'm very proud of.
Which leads us to the jail overcrowding situation. What role does the DA's office play in that?
In the overcrowding? So, you know, the overcrowding of our jail really has two things. As our population has grown, our jail has not. So our jail is just simply too small. I mean, there's always going to be people who are criminals, people who do evil in society. It's been like that since since humans have been on this planet. So you have to have a jail that is the proper size for your communities, and that we've just been lacking that as our community's been getting bigger. You add on top of that the fact that AB 109 said, you know, if this person steals 5 people's vehicle and has a history of stealing vehicles and is just a vehicle thief, we might give them 5 years of prison, but they're not going to do that in our state prison after AB 109. They're going to come and do that in our local jail. And our local jail is not designed for that. It's designed for people who are awaiting their trial or awaiting sentencing, usually a year or less. And then they're either out maybe on probation if that's what they got, or if they get state prison, they're off to state prison. So a lot of our jail beds now are taken up by these what typically would be state prison prisoners. So that is filling it up as well. So it's not a function of anything that my office is or isn't doing. We are continuing to be tough on crime and filing those cases and going forward on those cases, but there's no room at the jail. So if they don't show up and we get a warrant for their arrest and they're arrested, well, they just don't show up again, and it's a cycle that just keeps on going. So we have got to, as a community, do what we can to get a bigger jail, and that's why I've been a very strong advocate for that, currently working with our county partners to make that a reality for our community.
And what do you see in the future? Should you be reelected?
Well, I want to continue to work on getting the new jail. That is something that our community has to have, and that is something that it's going to be a reality. I believe that that is the biggest thing that is being supported by the community, and is certainly something I'm going to do everything I can to continue to and do what I can to make sure that becomes a reality. I believe that there's a lot of more proactive programs that we can continue to be doing. For example, just in this last year, the San Diego's District Attorney's Office started a new program revolved around human trafficking and efforts in that area, and that is something we can do more of. I want to work with the San Diego DA's office to bring a similar program up here. I have a very great relationship with the elected DA, Summer Stephan, down there. So it's having those relationships with other counties that are going to allow me to bring similar programs here to our community. Another thing that we need to do more on is we need to work on our cold cases. Thankfully, I've been talking to our new sheriff, Mike Johnson, and we have been talking about that very idea. We both want to find a way to work together collaboratively in order to bring resolution to these cases that have just been out there for so long, and these families that don't have answers. We need to work on those cases in a very aggressive way, and that's not to say that our agencies haven't been looking at them, but I feel like we can all work together in the future to do even more to bring resolution to them. For example, just last year, the case Christine Monroe, who was murdered on the Sacramento River Trail, and just the amount of work that the Redding Police Department did in solving that is just amazing, because it brought such closure to not only to that family, but to our community. And I just feel like we all need to do more in that, and that is something that I want to do and have been working on doing. And we have, a growing problem with the large-scale illegal marijuana grows that are occurring in our community. That brings in a lot of crime. We've had a lot of homicides that have been directly related to those illegal grows. There's a lot of people who are felons who are working them. They've got a lot of guns there when they're working those. It makes it very dangerous for the community and law enforcement. They are using pesticides and insecticides that are destroying our waterways, our environment, and killing animals, and that's not okay. We have to work on that. And I've requested in my budget for next year to add an additional investigator and attorney so we can have a dedicated team working with the sheriff's office on that, because we have to hit that in a very large way going forward. So those are three of the things, but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I spend my next term continuing to come up with ways to work with my community partners and my law enforcement partners with the sole focus on public safety and doing what we can to make this community that I love so much a better community. This is where I met my husband, who's a career police officer, we're raising our 4 children here. So I consider this my hometown. I grew up in a military family, lived all over the United States, so this is where I was able to put down roots as an adult. So it is now my hometown of where I'm raising my children, and it's very special to me. And I can think of no better place to be a public servant and serve as I have over the last 20 years than here in Shasta County.
And anything else you'd like to say?
I think this election is very important. I really want to stress to everyone in the community that your voice matters and that you need to get out there and participate in the process. Really educate yourself on both candidates, no matter what race is involved, because there is a big difference between the candidates in every race, and what you hear on TV, on radio, and all that is not always accurate. And you need to look, not only do your own research on both candidates, but research who is financing candidates and what is going on behind them, because experience really does matter. And there's a lot of very qualified candidates in this race, including myself, who are just truly public servants who want to continue to represent you and have your best interest at heart. And getting out and voting is just so extremely important.
Thank you.
Thank you.